Welcome to Share Talk, the only podcast where investors come first.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast. It is Sunday, the 28th of March. I'm joined by Phil Carroll, Dr. Droid, aka Albert Arthur, and by Kevin Hornsby. How are you today, gents?
Very good, Zach. Thanks.
My first observation is that Thursday was just a horrible day. What happened then?
I think we got a combination going on. I think what we're seeing at the moment is the end of the tax year. You've got traders taking cash positions. Also, Bitcoin got an absolute kick in. So you've got the people in Bitcoin, which reflects on the the precious metals increase influx there. You've also got COVID coming back into the European Union wave 3. And there's also a bit of bubble panic. And you've got Biden in stateside collapsed. I mean, I've never seen the FTSE down that much for a long time. So I think we've got all of that going on at the moment, lots of cash positions. And also at the same time, what we've got is people starting to take recovery sort of positions on the market. It's a complicated time at the moment, trying to figure out where to put your cash.
But then luckily to save us all, there was the rebound on Friday. So, before you slash your wrists, it's almost like back to normal or our previous normal.
Yeah, and I think this is why sometimes when the markets do this, you go for a walk. I've been looking for new positions. I've got a lot of nice ones that I like the look of. I've quoted selling things I hold, but I didn't sell a thing. I didn't do one trade this week. I didn't buy, didn't sell. You got to review the fundamentals of why you hold, and the fundamentals don't change. But one panic moment on the market, you can end up costing yourself a fortune. So you just got to be strong in these times. And
yeah, but if Ray Dalio says that the US government's going to ban Bitcoin any day now, then obviously you're going to be slightly shaky if you're an Argo blockchain holder.
Definitely.
Yeah. Tesla Musk just announced that they're actually going to accept payment. Well, not accept, but they've started accepting payment in Bitcoin. And I think General Motors have just said as well that they're considering it. So it's like, that as soon as one does it, they're all going to follow suit. And then it will just be that ripple effect where manufacturers, all sorts of, there'll be businesses doing transactions in Bitcoin to pay for goods. That's the idea, isn't it? Is Musk is pushing it. Now, I think we talked last week about India stopping, outlawing it and preventing people from actually holding it and fining people. And that was, India is the country where there's the biggest number of transactions in Bitcoin historically. It is shaky, but I still think that it's got a long, long way to go.
Right. And so you think that Thursday was just a one-day wonder or one-day nightmare?
The problem with Thursday was it wasn't an isolation, was it? I mean, I think for me anyway, the last 3 weeks, but I've heard some of the other guys saying for the last 5 weeks, their portfolio has been steadily going down. So this happened in February as well. I think January was like a rocket. February, then it was down a bit each week. It was like death by 1,000 cuts. And then the end of February, beginning of March, started to really move again. And then the last few weeks, no. So I think just sales of antidepressants are probably going to go up, because of the last few weeks. And then, so get into the pharmaceuticals as quickly as you can. And then we'll see what happens. But I think end of tax year, lots of ISA money going to be coming, lots of cash sitting on the sides. Some of the stuff is crazy cheap and some of the stuff is crazy expensive, I think.
As an investor, it's confusing where to go because it's all up in the air. They're talking about a vaccine, not a passport, but you need a vaccine to go to the pub or you need a test kit to go to the pub. Nothing's set in stone at the moment. So where do you invest? I see that there's going to be a big influx in this testing. I mean, vaccinations. Okay, so the government with vaccinations and vaccinations are seen as a silver bullet, but you look at what the scientists are saying, you can transmit the virus, you can virally shed while you're vaccinated. You can't just say we're vaccinated, let's open things up. It's not the way the cookie crumbles. You've got different, mutations coming in from different parts of the world. We're going to need new vaccines. This thing's here to stay. And I think COVID is a big factor and the uncertainty into the last week that we've seen on the markets. I mean, There's talks of a bubble, and it looks like a bubble.
I agree, and I think, as you say, COVID is here, whether we like it or not. It's going to become a new, it's a new cold. It's a new the coronavirus cold. It's a flu. There's going to be seasonal, spikes as we move. Probably, as Whitty said, didn't he, this week, that we're going to get a wave 3. It's probably going to be moving into autumn or winter. Fine, and obviously vaccinations will hopefully reduce the infection rate, because the proof that vaccination does help the transmission, it keeps it down a certain amount. But at what point do we actually say we have to get on with life? We have to accept that it's there.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Phil. But I mean, the world's a moving target, and for example, if you're 69 today, you might be 70 this time next year, and the virus might not have affected you in the same way. So the figures are going to keep going up, and it comes back down to the kind of, what is the right thing to do? I mean, he's spreading like wildfire. There's new mutations. We've been in this loop for over a year now, and just unless we get this testing nailed and the vaccination nailed, and I think they're going to come. Vaccines take years to develop. They are going to come, but I think we're going to tread water for a while, because as far as human respect would go, just to say, well, let's just go on with life. But I totally get the point. I'm sick of being locked in my house. I want to go to the pub with my friends.
Should we go into the people's highlights of the week? But the Thursday was that dip. I suppose the good point about Thursday is it sorted out the wheat from the chaff in terms of stocks, which any stock which managed to withstand was actually up on a Thursday. It's probably worth more than gold bars. But maybe I'll start with Phil on his stocks of the week, and then going on to what he's looking for next week.
Sure, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean, Monday started off well with I think we talked about this. We touched on this in a phone call. The DKE, or Dukemount, as you know, they agreed an outline to terms for a joint venture agreement. It's basically developing a contract or a joint venture for the cost of approximately 6.2 million. And in the RNS, the key point of it that drove the share price up was a statement from Jeffrey Dart that talks about the joint venture representing the next step to the company meeting its target to become a £100 million market cap company. And that obviously, drew people in. People highlighted that section, got the little digital marker pens out like they do on these Telegram groups, as we know. And it sent the shares up sort of 30-40% on open. I think our discussion was potentially, where is this going to stop? It's not going to stop. And it went on, and it rode to sort of 1.2, 1.3 region, but pretty much finished the day flat on the open. Okay, very disappointing. But I think what really the market needs to see is some clarity on what sort of revenues are going to. We know that the deal potentially is worth 6.25 million, and we work with multipliers and PE ratios, but actually we need more substance to just make the statement of it helps us to become 100 million market cap. So that was a winner for Monday, but really it's been a week of pretty much just consolidation on most fronts. Life has sat around the sort of 5-6 pence mark. I had quite a lot of trading today on that. That's driven the value up, but it's just been a bit of a flat week. And I think, as Albert said earlier on, I tend to just want to switch off from the market and take a step back from it. I had a good week last week. I was about 15-20% up on the portfolio with some early successes, and this week I'm probably a few percent down. But you just take the rough with the smooth, and you switch off, you go out for a walk or whatever, and just kind of don't overtrade it. Just because you had a good week last week, don't try and replicate it this week, because you end up overtrading and losing your gains, really. So that's where we are with me this week. It's just a kind of same old, really. I've not really done any new trades, maybe one or two that I've opened, built a few positions, but other than that, it's just been a kind of sit back and reflect week.
Kevin, what's on your radar, and what's been on your radar, and what might be on the radar?
Well, the week overall, I was down 2% on my portfolio. Overtraded a few things, got FOMO into a few things, got out of them pretty sharpish as well. But I traded, I started position in NSCI after Albert's coercion last week. And I also started a position in FUM. That was looking very good. And then it went very floppy, but I'm still holding.
That was humor, was it?
I will let you judge that. Often when you're still holding, it will eventually come good, I think, it will go the right direction. That's normally what happens, I think. And the final one I took a position in, so I did take 3 new positions this week, so that was probably quite radical, was ARC Minerals, when basically there was a few either bedwetters or somebody wanted to sell it down and it went down to the low 6s. And I managed to buy, I think, 300,000. In fact, maybe I bought a few more, but I sold it to make it a round number today with 5-6% profit. So I have that position now. That was a ZAC gap stock. And I was very happy that I managed to get in at that price in the end. Everything else, yeah, SYME, it's looking good. It's looking solid and going up. And Zoetech,
SYME, it's like no news is good news, because I think the more stable it is and the longer it holds, wherever it holds, the better it is. It sort of shows acceptance of the concept. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, we talked about what we think it can do last week a little bit. I still don't think any of that was pie in the sky. I think it's quite likely, but there has to be some concrete information and concrete financials put in place, and then I think it's going to skyrocket. And the other one was Zoetech, which was, I think, up a little bit on the week, and I will talk about that more later. That's going to be the stock that I talk about. So not very exciting, but not disastrous either. But overall, I analyzed my portfolio, and in the last 3 weeks, I'm down 15%, and mainly due to my own overtrading.
Right. So you're just a bit trigger happy, let's say, in terms of.
Yeah, I would say at least 5 to 7% of that is me overtrading.
I was just looking at the movers this week, Zach, actually on SharePad to see what, you know, the ones that have gone up. And you mentioned from Futura Medical obviously went up. Alpha Growth, ALGW, that's one I'm in, which has done 18.5% this week. It's quite telling when you look at some of these stocks, but that's been a decent one. And I'm just going to look at the broader market now and see what else we've got
one at the end of the day today. I noticed that.
Yeah. Would you believe Aminex did 62% since last Friday? I mean, they're Aminex are an oil explorer. They used to be an oil explorer. Yeah.
Gas in Tanzania.
Yeah, gas. Yeah, so that's done really well. Yeah, so Aminex has been the biggest mover this week out of all 1,940 companies. 88E has done 57% as well this week. I think they had some good news. Braveheart, would you believe? Yeah. 55%. Best trader on AIM. And Amigo has done, Amigo holding AMGO, the financial, the payday loans company, have done 48%. So, and then there was a new joiner, Rockfort. Do you know anything about Rockfort Investments? I think I mentioned in the group earlier on, they've done 45%. They IPO'd at 6p and they finished at 8.7. So it's worth keeping an eye on these companies that IPO and list on the main market, because generally they go in. I mean, some of them do drop back, but they tend to sort of rise. Wildcat was one that recently went from, we talked about this as well, didn't we, Albert, that they went from like 0.2 on listing. And as soon as blockchain was mentioned, they went up to, I don't know, 2.5, 3p. So that's done like 20
that was a funny one, because I found that off the word blockchain. I was looking for stuff and it just popped up. It had a large cap, big float, and then all of a sudden it did 100% in a couple of days. So
yeah,
you know, I think the word a lot of new investors, the word blockchain gets ramped and bought, doesn't it? So
yeah,
but I think it would also be a good thing to look at the stocks this week that didn't move, because if they didn't go down very much this week,
so, I mean, I'll talk about one that I think is a bit of a hot topic at the minute. So one of the ones people have been speculating and talking about, Dan the broker man tweeted about it, is MyHealthChecked. Now this was one, I found it a long time ago, 1.7, 1.9p entry, and going back to what we just spoke about earlier, the idea was, I like to try and predict where the future is going to be. And I know, Kevin, you're in Egypt. You don't follow these processes. But like Zach was saying, it's about the NHS. But you look at the rest of it. Look at the EU, and they're doing the same. Germany's going into a lockdown. France is going into lockdown. Where are British tourists want to go? Where are they going to want to go? Where's the demand going to travel to? So for me, demand on a product is a key factor of purchase. And when I looked at MHC, originally I found it because it was the word approval. So I looked at the word approval and it was test for release, government approved, 2 buzzwords in there. Well, I didn't know what test for release meant, but when I looked at what it meant that you're going to need this to travel. So my speculation drove me to buy this. Now, when you look under the hood of this company, there's a company, the revenue, it was a 10 million cap, 28k revenue, called Concepta. Now, they did a JV with Abington in 2020. They've got one of the products on the shelf, it's called My Lotus. And healthcare companies, there's a lot of forecasting on the healthcare companies are going to be the big unicorns of the future. So I was looking under the hood and I noticed that Adam Reynolds crossed bod to Abington, gold standard, the testing kits. You've also got EFK connections in there. What's the Lynn Reese across to EFK. Now, when you're looking at a company with a product that's potentially going to supply test kits to airlines or whatever private or public contracts they get, on a cap of 10 million, small gains are going to bring you big returns. So I started looking at this, and I originally bought it pure speculation on MHC because of penny on the bod, very solid bod. They've got YGen EFK Abington connections for test kits for this test for release process. And what we were just talking about, because we're under such like stringent rules and of travel and things going up, I just feel like testing is going to be a big thing for the next 10 to 18 months. So I went and I bought some of the MHC. At one point, I've not sold any. I still hold full positions. But over the coming weeks, there's been a lot of speculation of Dan, the broker man, saying they're going to get a contract. There's, I think, Tom Winifred, I think is one of his biggest holdings. And this week, I was surprised to see it pull back because, you know, it's with what's coming with this test for release process. I think it's been hammered by a couple of the traders on the pullback. But I mean, I've had a look at the churn and the overhang, and I was going to explain what churn and overhang is. So the overhang is when you allot shares to a market. They can't just put 1 billion shares in one go onto the market. Now, why this is important is because it makes a move. It makes a share move quickly or slowly. If you so as a rule of thumb, the way I calculate it is when you're allotting shares, 7% of daily volume will take it off the overall overhang. So when you've crushed all of the overhang off that 7%, you end up with all of the shares allotted. So your overhang is the allotment of new shares. Now in MHC, that's gone. It's recently gone. And then what you then have is the churn. And what the churn is when a placing holder, say if I bought like MHC placing was 1.75 pence, most of those have done 100% as soon as the shares got allotted. So what will happen is they'll trade off. So it's been going on for a while now. So it looks like a lot of the churn and a lot of the overhang has gone there. And I mean, I was surprised to see that one pull back this week. It's dropped down to 3.6 pence. So for me, that's one this week that took me by surprise a little bit. And I think a lot of it goes back to what we were talking about, the cash positions, end of the tax year, the COVID coming back, the second wave, and also there's a lot of speculation around travel and what's going to happen with that. You know, are we going to be able to go abroad, or are we going to just have to stay at home and do our staycations?
But your view is that once the churn's gone, you're basically you're quite relaxed.
I mean, well, it was interesting with that one because Oberon Investments did the book build, and I think I mentioned this before. When the shares got allotted, it was quite interesting because they did 2 allotment days. Now, what was very interesting is they did the book build and gave it to discretionary clients. Now, if you looked at the second allotment, guess what happened the day after? A TR1. Guess what the previous position was? 1.8% or so. What that told me straight away was that a lot of it was under EIS. EIS is tightly held. So what that says to me is the most of the placing is tightly held. And when I saw the 1% come out from Oberon Investments, what it told me is I already knew how little of that placing was in loose hands, and that's already gone. So to me, it says a lot of the the churn has been sold out. But also a lot of the overhang is all gone. So I've calculated the overhang based on 3% of average volume. It was gone a couple of weeks ago. But I mean, there's a lot of speculation about the contracts. If you look at it, they already supply boots for the MyLotus test, and the future of healthcare, it's bigger. It's a bigger picture than just COVID testing, because like girls, they have to have the smear test, and there's future talks of you do smear test from home. You don't need that awkwardness. So healthcare for me is a hot topic. It's not a trade. And when I looked at the MHC, I mean, it's not really a highlight of the week because it's pulled back, but I don't think a lot of people understand it, MHC. So I just thought I'd discuss that one a little bit.
But it's basically diagnostics in general is the new rock and roll. Diagnostics either to see what you've got at the moment or to see what you might have in the future, which I think Oxford Biodynamics came up with something like that. I think we've had Deep Verge Microsaic coming up with an announcement this week as well in a similar vein, that it's all about, the new rock and roll is diagnostics and how to get it as forward looking and as accurate and as quick as possible.
Yeah, Deep Verge is a very interesting one because, I mean, Gerald, he came in a couple of years ago and the company was losing millions, and he came into Deep Verge. And I originally found the Deep Verge. I originally invested in Deep Verge for wastewater testing. So I saw it. It was a kind of a joint. It wasn't a joint venture. It was an agreement with AVCT. And I looked and I thought, well, what's going on with this? What's the and so one thing that got me invested there was they've got a Modern Water. They did a merger with Modern Water. Now we're in this predicament. We're talking about reactive testing, reactive vaccines. Now, something that really stood out to me with the Deep Verge was they do wastewater surveillance. So it's not a reactive treatment or reactive blocker to COVID. What it is it's a proactive blocker to COVID. Because if you can look at the water levels and you look at the history of Modern Water, I think they're in 60 countries with over 3,000 installations. It's completely global, and that's what got me going. So I had a look at the bod, and I always dissect the bod, and I watched Gerald speak actually, and he said about a year ago today, and this is quite rare for an AIM stock, I'm sure you'll all agree, he said the predicted revenues are 4 million this year. And I looked at, previously the company was called Skin, minus the millions. And then towards the end of the year, 4 million was delivered. I was really happy with that, and predicting this year, 2021, 10 million, it's another 300%. But not only that, they've got 4 key products. One of them, it uses the same tech, and what they're doing is the infrastructure that's already in the water, they're adapting. It's called Mitrotox. I think you've got Mitrotox DX and Mitrotox BT. One of them is a water analysis machine. It's not just for COVID. It can tell you anything that's in that contaminated water or any viruses going through that water. But what's really interesting is they've put the same thing into a breath test kit. So originally it was under 10 seconds, but so they're doing a COVID test. It's not just COVID. And the way it works, it's very interesting. You should read up and have a look at it. It uses the same tech. You use a cartridge, so you pay about 20 grand for this machine. Put it on the side of a wall of a pub, and it takes a cartridge in your little reusable breath test. It costs about £2, I believe. And you breathe into this, put it in a 50p box, and within under a minute you get the AI results back. And for things like with the testing and venues, it just looks like a forward-looking, new, outside-the-box idea. And then alongside that, they also have the lab skin, which is rather than testing on animals, you can grow human skin of your own in a lab, and it tells you how things will react to you. And they've recently launched something called Skin Trust Club, which is an application on your phone and mobile app, and it takes into account your surroundings and wherever you live in, your skin type, your age, and it recommends skin products. It sends you a pack out. So I think healthcare and things like this, with us being in the lockdowns, it's going to be a thing of the future. It's not here right now. If you want a smear test, you've got to go and have an awkward moment at with your GP. And probably be a lot of unhappy GPs that they're not going to get to do those anymore. But you know, it's.
I could feel another edit coming on. I just wanted to, I mean, that the deep, with Deep Bird, you've got a company which has got multifaceted. It's got different, it's got many strings to its bow. You've got other companies which maybe like Braveheart and maybe like the Gene Drives and the other companies like that, where they're basically one product companies and they're waiting for a big deal, are valued much better than the company with the guy who predicts the future, says 4 million this year, 10 million next year, probably say 15 million.
They might be right now, but that's different. If you go in with an investment, you're looking at 10 million this year in Deep Bird. They're going to be in positive net profit margins. They've signed up with MSIS. I mean, if you're a day trader or a trader or a news trader, you look at what's going, you're in and out. For me, it's an investment. I've invested in it, and there's a lot of traders in it. I mean, some of the groups are really negative.
You've nailed it though. I mean, that sums up the whole market. Most of the market now is people want a quick in and out. The rainbow chasers want those 30, 40, 50, everyone's saying, what's today's bagger? What's today's bagger? Well, you know what? In this market, you're lucky to get a bagger a day at the moment, because it's not like March and April where it was COVID bloody casino and everything was doing, days when Hemo were doing 300% Val and, all the stocks went absolutely berserk. Novasit did 300% one day. I was in Skin back a year or so ago, and it was good, and it rode up, and people got it was jittery, wasn't it, at the time when they announced the agreement with, and was it Modern Water Group or whatever, and then but the thing is I think you summed it up, like, invest in it. Don't just play around with it, and that just killing stock.
I also do think, I mean, I'm not a big trader, but I do think you need an investment part. You need an investment part, you need a long part, and you need a trading part. That's how to attack the market with, to get best wins. You go in with, I bought the BC, and I mean, the CEO's not messaged me back. It's a dead dog, but I don't, even if I lose all that money, I don't care, but there is the one chance.
I've watched that one just drop. I've watched it drop back, mate. I'm thinking, am I going to get my 0.9, 0.8 entry? And I'm seeing it every day dropping back. I think I might go in.
This is what it's about. I mean, you've got to have a bit of fun with it. Buy some of the stuff like that. This is how some of the big books are made.
Back to your point about revenues, right? And again, people do not look at revenues anymore. Like, your proper investors, they go through all the financials for the last 3 or 4 years. They build a picture on what the growth is. Kevin's good at that. He's good at looking at stocks and looking at revenues. You look at MHC, for instance, right? We've seen their last revenues, but I'd like to think that with the Boots agreement that we're going to be able to see some big growth going forward.
So MHC, let me tell you something about that. Yeah, this is how simple it is to work out.
Okay, let me stop you there, Albert, before you talk, okay?
Yeah.
Because I want to clear something up. The enterprise investment schemes, the EIS, many people will not understand those. So are we talking, how long is the money got to be locked in those enterprise investments?
Yeah, it's a 3-year lock-in. On
3 years. So we know those shares will not be traded for 3 years.
Exactly, unless you go into the fact of tax versus profit. Yeah. However, I think there's still, because there's some agreement in place that you still can't sell it. That's what makes it so attractive. So if you can find people that have took an oversubscribed or a subscribed placing where they're locked in like that. I mean, look at it now. He went up to 5-6p, no sells, no TR1s. This is when you're in a secure position. Well, going back to what we were saying about the revenue. So for me, a key thing with it. So very simple maths. I looked at it, 28k revenue. And then I worked out that if they sold one PCR test kit a day, just 10 a day, they'd make something like, I think it was 330k revenue. 1,100% increase in revenue from selling 10 test kits a day from one product. And that's when, for me, alarm bells ring and you think, this is a flip. A company flip's going to make it big. It'll bring institutions, TR1s, but also in a sector you like. And sometimes it's easy, fast to crunch something where there's an idea. But I think, half of today's traders are coming in and they're just, what's the bag? They don't know what a market cap is. They've got money. They all buy it at the same time. Yeah. They all sell it. You just get, you know.
I think Zach mentioned GDR early on. I was looking at their financial results just about, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and I looked at their revenues and turnover for this last financial, probably the quarter or the half year financials, and they came in at 400,000. Okay. And they've got they had a market cap on the day of around 75 million. Okay. And I looked at the multipliers in that industry and looked at PE ratios and things like that. And then I looked at SNT, Sabian Technology, who just announced a £400,000 contract earlier in the month, and they'd done their financials were on the same day, and they did 400,000 turnover, and they've got a market cap of 5 million. And I thought, the market is so, like, the disparity between, it's hot, it's got COVID, it's got, you know what I mean? It's like, if it's not current.
That's fantastic in the sense that you just told me that now. I mean, obviously, it's rather easy to pick out between the two stocks. You said with Sabian. I mean, Sabian could be a duster too. It could be like, I
think people are realizing SPACs are just not all that at the moment. You look at Ridgecrest, you look at Dukemount, SNT, and all the ones that purport to be either cash shows or SPACs. They've just gone so. GST's done all right because Jack Bye's involved, and there's the whole sort of blockchain link there, and that seems to be still pretty good. But a lot of them are just kind of, they're just hemorrhaging. Every day you see 3-4% drop, and you look at them and think, no, I think SPACs are sort of just, they've had the day, really.
I was having a look earlier at open-ended, so I was doing like sector analysis. So I've got like a tool that will tell me the sector rises, and open-ended investment vehicles are 80% up. They're the top sector. It's not really a sector, it's an investment vehicle. Everyone's buying in, hoping,
Yeah, but isn't that a SPAC? It's about following the money and following the management, or following the investor, the entrepreneur, the name. That's what it's about, isn't it? And in a way, that's what the stock market's about. In general, I mean, just like I interviewed FAR today, Samik Davis has come on board. Obviously, if he's involved, XX Strata, well, that's a pretty compelling argument. So it's almost as if that was a SPAC. You have a big name or a big amount of money, like that Jack Bye you put in, 900K or whatever it is. You follow the money, you follow the man or the woman. Like Vin Muria, she's put in 17.5 million into that new tech SPAC. It might be a total turkey, but she's put 17.5 million pounds into it. So I probably think that she knows what she's doing, or at least she thinks she knows what she's doing. So far, it's not actually like set the world on fire either. No. I've seen on Twitter, it was I think it's just, I think she got lucky before. It doesn't really, she doesn't really know what, it's like, well, I'm not really interested.
Yeah, I think Vin's name on the micro caps always shot them up, hasn't it? This is a bit. It's got a very small public float. The Mac 1, it was called originally. I did see them pinging in when they first listed, but I think it's got a good catalyst, Vin has, to micro caps. I mean, this one's a bit larger, isn't it? So, I mean, I'm not sure. But
it's just I'm sort of saying, I don't care if Coco the Clown's put 17.5 million pounds in it. That's a big amount of money, and presumably they know what they're doing, especially given the way that SPAC is potentially a zero. I mean, it doesn't have an asset at the stage, so they wouldn't be putting in 17.5 million just for the fun of it. It's a lot of money. I
had a good chat with Russell Fryer. I don't know if you know him, from Critical Metals, and he's got an ambition to grow CRTM, Critical Metals, to be generating 20 million in EBITDA by 2023. He's got effectively a cash shell at the moment on the main market. I think they IPO'd around September of last year, and the SP has risen from around 4 or 5 pence, maybe even 3 pence, up to probably around the 15 mark at the moment. So it's already gone up sort of 300-350%, but the market cap is still at 5 million. So and he's also said he wants to declare dividends as well. So that Russell's got a really good background in mining anyway. You could look at his CV, so he's pretty confident that he can deliver these aspirations. So I think that's one that I'm going to start to look into in the next week or so, and do a bit more. Maybe wait for a little bit if there's any pullback, to sort of aim for a sort of 12 pence entry if possible, and get in at that point.
Yeah, but it's not the thing with these things. You want to get the ground floor level when it's of 1-2 million pound, something like that level. So you don't, you put in a small amount of 10 grand or whatever it is, small for you. and you hope that if it works, you'll get a 5-bagger or a 10-bagger. If it doesn't work, you've lost a seed amount of money.
Exactly.
But these things, normally, it is the case that the people involved put their money where their mouth is.
Russell's invested something like £500,000 of his own money. So it's not, when you look at the TR1s and the transactions, I think he's got something like 30 or 40% of the shares. It's certainly a large amount of them, and he's bought them on the open market. So the guy, he's got a philosophy. I was talking to him. He looks at he's almost like a Bitcoin mentality. He doesn't want dilution. He wants there's minimum amount of shares that are, that are outstanding as possible. The aspirations are to generate the EBITDA, so it's a profitable company. It's paying dividends. It's returning to shareholders. And I like his attitude because it's not like, not a typical CEO where he's going to dilute heavily, placing after placing. He says 90 million shares, that's the max, or whatever the figure is. I think it's just around under 100 million. And that's it. He's not going to go any further. And that really does keep that shareholder value in there. And I just think that the guy's got a great attitude. So maybe one day we can invite him on as a CEO to have a chat, because he's made some pretty good investments in the past.
Kevin, would you go for something like that? Is that in your kind of ballpark?
I had a chat with a guy because he's in the Telegraph group about a week ago, and I was intrigued by it. I thought, yes, this is good, but I thought at that time it was 18p, and for me this was like 4 times nearly the price it began at, and they haven't done anything yet. So I was a bit skeptical at that point, but it all sounds very positive, I have to say. But the thing that would put me off is that he has to RTO and suspend for probably 3 to 6 months. Basically, your money is tied up and that's it. It's gone for that period of time. Maybe it comes back and it gives you a bonanza, but effectively you're tying your money up, and who knows what could happen in that time frame. It could be very, very positive, and also it could be a bit of a nightmare. So there was ifs and buts. But what I would say is it's interesting what all of you have been saying in points. I want to bring you now to the London Stock Exchange, not the AIM market, because I want to talk to you about Zoetic, because a lot of it has been the points that you've made already. Zoetic's story was really all about HNR, which was Highland Natural Resources, and it was a disaster. It was a train wreck. And they found some helium. And from the helium, they decided they would grow some hemp. Don't ask me how that happened, but it happened. They then came across the CEOs who are now in charge, joint CEOs. And they came up with a plan. They came up with a plan that they were going to attack the tobacco and nicotine market, okay? So they were going to go for smoking cessation of tobacco products. Now, why they went for that, I have no idea. Master plan, they decided to go for this. So what basically happened was they started to create products, smokes, and pouches to replace the tobacco ones in the US and all over the world. So this has been happening now over the last 12 months. And yes, Zoetic has gone from 5p to over £1 at one point, and now 89, 86 pence at the minute. But the interesting thing is that I wrote some figures down, so I'll just sort of try and read them out. The market for tobacco cigarettes is approximately $2 to $3 trillion a year. I just let that number sink in. $2 to $3 trillion.
That's one of Kev's daily trades, isn't it?
It is.
When he backs out, that's the loss he makes when he buys in and he's not done 50% in an hour.
Okay, stop trying to put me off, you lot. Even 1% of this world market would create a multi-billionaire company. So they now have an agreement with AATAC, which is, don't ask me what the title stands for, but it's companies like Shell, BP, Texaco, all of these convenience stores all over the US, okay? 88,000 of them. And not just an agreement, they have an agreement to put a sales cabinet at every checkout. So it's not about it's going to be in the back of the store. It'll be at every checkout in every one of these 88,000 stores. Now, the first rollout is 10,000 stores in the next 12 to 15 months. So I did the calculations, and the annualized profit, not revenue, profit to Zoetek will be just shy of $100 million a year if each store sells 10 packets or pouches of these products per day. 10 shouldn't be a lot. There's huge footfall through all of these places. Now, if that happens on a PE of 30, Zoetek will be worth somewhere in the region of 3 billion US, and the share price will be £10. It's currently 86 pence. Now, I expect that by the end of this year, that will be in the £5 to £10 range in the share price. Now, why? Coming back to your tightly hold situation, the Schrader family, who own Ox Distribution, are the sole distributors of Zoetek or Chill brand products, Chillway. They own 14% of Zoetek. On top of that, John Story, the ultra high net worth individual, has now got in the region of 13%, and he's adding all the time of Zoetek. The CEOs also hold a considerable sum. I did a survey recently in our group of Zoetek, and 70 people gave me their holdings, and we held 18.75% of the company between 70 of us. So the free float of Zoetek is around 25 to maximum 32 million shares. That's all that's available on the market. So my belief is this is going to rocket. They have the funds in place. They just did a flexible loan where they can take the things for shares or the money for shares when they choose, and at effectively a price they can decide with the loan. And on top of that, the revenue that's going to be generated very soon as the stores roll out, 125 stores a week. And we already know that they're 6 to 7 weeks into this. So there should be an announcement pretty soon that there's like 1,000 stores already, which is going to create huge revenue on its own. You know, based on the figures we talked about, that's $10 million a year in revenue. That's without Zoetek CBD brand, which is called Zoetek. And that's high-end male grooming products, oil, gummies, etc., etc., etc. They have an agreement with 15,000 stores already in Europe, but that can't be announced until the food license things come through. And they also have a deal in the UK, which has also been signed, and again will not come through until the license is accepted, which we expect next week, or depending on whether they delay everybody, it might be another month's time. So this play for me is all about Chillway, chillway.com, and these smokes and the replacement of tobacco with a healthier alternative, taking you away from the nicotine and giving you the relaxation of CBD in the product at the same time, and health benefits, which we can't say that's what they are, but ultimately there must be some health benefits to CBD. Yeah. So this incorporates a market or a share capital tightly held, big high net worth individuals who are holding huge quantities of these shares, and a product that is going to create ongoing massive revenue, even if it doesn't do very, very well. Massive revenue. That's the figures I gave you is 10,000 stores. They have signed agreements now with 120,000 stores in the US and Europe.
All right, so let me ask you the question, because it's like, because we do have a very unfair stock market. You sort of see, as we were saying, with Deep Verge versus, I don't know, Gene Drive, or you have Eurasia versus Ferro Alloy Resources, let's say. You've got different companies which they seem to do well or not well in a rather unfair way. Do you think the market is going to be, I mean, it's already been quite kind to Zoetic, even though there one or two people have been throwing stones. So far, it's had that bear burning potential. Looks as though it's been a victory of stock buyers and holders over the cynics. I mean, I met somebody today, and it's just somebody who just unsolicited said, "Oh yeah, because that's Zoetic. They haven't done anything yet, and they're worth 170 million pounds. That type of thing." So you have that, which there's plenty of stocks. Obviously, you can say that on, but it's just one of those things that there are some stock, they're Teflon, they can bat away that kind of thing, which I suppose you've got to be fair to Zoetic, it has batted away the cynics. But they say, look at it now. Don't look at it in a year's time. Look at it now. 170 million. What are they doing? They're not doing anything. So there's that kind of thing.
It's down to the revenues again, and that you summed it up. Until the market sees what this global rollout or what this US rollout is into all these, these ATAC stores and everything like that, you can't put a value on the market cap, because it's either the market is priced in the sales already that it thinks is, like Kevin's generated some, back of a fag packet calculation, and I'm not doubting that they couldn't sell 10 packs of cigarettes or your smokables, but the point I make is, and again, this is not a comparison, because Zoetic have got a completely different product. That their unique USP is the cessation, the smokables. But again, and I come back to revenues, Life, Love Hemp are 25 million market cap, and yes, we know they're on Aquis, and hopefully that'll be fixed with some sort of uplift if it ever happens, and hopefully it will. And that for me is 25 million market cap, 6.2 million revenues annualized, and actually on the shelves of Boots, Ocado, Waitrose, Sainsbury's, Holland and Barrett exclusivity. It's all there. And the UFC deal, never underestimate that, what they can do with that. Launching the global product into the North American market initially. They've got product into Japan, first to market in Asia, and they've got it into Thailand. So for me, I see this as the fever tree of the CBD world. For me, fever tree is probably one of the biggest success stories on the AIM market. You look at they've probably done something like 100 bags, which is phenomenal, like the ASOS and the Domino's pizza. So Life at 25 million, they should be up there with Zoetic without a shadow of a doubt. And you look at Canabo, you look at CBX, Cellular Goods, they've not even got an office, some of them. They've not even got a product that they can actually market right now. So with a valuation of 70 to 100 million, I just find it.
I think this is it. I mean, that's why it's good to have a diverse portfolio. I mean, for me, net profit, I always say fundamentals, net profit margin, revenue is absolutely essential. But if you can try and forecast where that's going to go, that's where you get the big baggers coming. So, I mean, you've got to have a mixture of all of it, haven't you? I mean, both companies, Life and Zoetic, they sound really good. I mean, if I was flying to America and I was going on a long flight, I might even take some of those gummies if they're available. So, No,
but I mean, is one of the things, though, is like the share price and the market cap almost become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The longer Zoetic stays at 170 million or 200 million or whatever it is at the peak, the more people will believe that that's what this company is. So much of the stock market is perception. I mean, that's the thing with Love Hemp and Zoetic. If Love Hemp was, on the main market, it'd be like a drag race between the two.
I mean, you can kind of compare it to like a Twitter, inspirational, what do you call them, influencer. Yeah. I mean, you have two influencers that post in the same photos. They've both got different amounts of likes. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a girl in a bikini, This one's got loads, they're the same thing. And it's the way the world works. You've got to attract, you've got to get the attention, you've got to get the following. Once you get it, it's the same on the stock market. People start believing, they love the product, they back it, they tell their friends, meet more people.
the stock market listing and that the market cap is so much of an advert for what you are, what you do.
Yeah.
Sorry, coming back just to the Zoetic and the way the shares are held, it's going to have a big impact because yes, it's been tried to bulletproof. It's got 196 million shares. Maximum, it's going to have 215 million shares. You know, and I look at Love Hemp. It's on the wrong exchange, as we've already discussed. It's got, 500 million shares, and there's going to be some warrants, and they're probably going to have to raise some money. So it's not going to be quite the same animal, but the market and the marketing of Love Hemp and the product, I see it's very good. You know, I don't see that it won't have its place. But with Zoetic, the smoking market or the cessation of tobacco market, for me, is a brilliant concept. And the regularity of purchases on that market is much higher than someone who's going to buy CBD or the oil or the beauty products or the gummies, because you smoke. Zach, you smoke.
CBD is seen as a health brand, as a lifestyle brand. It's aimed generally in the UK at your yoga mum type. Either use it, it's relaxing, it helps with sleep, it stops anxiety, reduces stress. But I don't understand that the smoking part, right? It's seen generally, you know, you're still burning. Yeah, you're right. It's not got the nicotine in it, but surely whatever they're putting in it, you're burning it. You're putting carcinogens or, you know, things into your. I'm trying to get my head around. What is the reason why you'd want to smoke CBD when you can put some drops under your tongue?
Hemp and herbs into your body instead of nicotine and all those carcinogens. Simple as that. It's a healthier option. And the reality is that many people, especially in the States, even the ones that are chewing the patches, are now having mouth cancer, throat cancer, etc., etc. Now, we can't prove it for sure, but the hemp pouches and the smokes are almost certainly going to be healthier than tobacco. The other thing that Zoetic have got is that they took out patents to something which is called an isolate. They've isolated the CBD from the THC, which is the THC is the thing that is
the psychoactive ingredient.
Get high, yes.
Yeah.
So some of the smokes you can buy are isolates. They don't have THC in it. They have patents pending now for these products. So if you were a pilot, if you were operating machinery or whatever, and you needed to still want to smoke these things, you could smoke them, still get the effect of the CBD, as in you'll be relaxed and maybe other health benefits, just like taking the oil. And many, many smokers, I think, yes, they want to smoke, but they know there is health issues with the tobacco. If they can smoke and have a healthier alternative, as I said with these figures, we only need 1% of the smoking population to think this is a good idea. And when I just told you that 10,000 stores gives 100 million revenue, we only need another 10 times that for that valuation.
So he's looking to take roughly 10% of the global CBD sales from Zoetic, basically, because it's going to be worth it.
No, this is where I think you're wrong. It's not 10% of the CBD sales. It's 10% of tobacco cessation, which may well be CBD, but it's not going to be in the same category. CBD is going to be oils, gummies, all of that stuff. But this is going to be its own separate thing. It's going to be 10%.
Have concerns about like regulation stepping in on like inhalation of this stuff, or
hemp for hundreds of years has not been outlawed. This is not cannabis. This is hemp. So hemp, you could do whatever you wanted with hemp anywhere in the world for the last
but
millennia.
with like the lung conditions and things coming in, especially with the long COVID. I mean, long COVID's going to affect. And like things like smoking, I've smoked cigars and I've had a drink, and but I mean, it's the price of cigarettes probably gone up more than the percentage of EUA in the last 5 years, which is a bloody lot, you know. 6,000.
So to answer your question,
No,
I'm not just trying to throw a spanner in the works. I think it's brilliant, but I'm just thinking you're smoking something in your lungs.
No, but I agree with you, Albert. There are potential spanners in the works. So, governments could turn around and want to tax this just the same as they tax tobacco, which could knock the profit margins like big style. But will that happen in the next 2 or 3 years? Very much doubt it. And by that stage, we'll have a huge company, more than likely, no matter how optimistic we look at it, a big tobacco company is going to come in and buy Zoetic for billions, and we'll all be very happy. And that company will go on and sell their product.
British American Tobacco, that's who you want. You want to get those guys.
Yeah, whoever. But I think it's quite a likely possibility.
I want to just ask each of you in turn just what your, obviously Zoetic is the main one here, but just for next week, the stock to look out for next week.
So for me, I've mentioned two. I won't say any more. I've got some really good big ones up my sleeve, but I don't want to talk about them just yet because I don't. They are ready. They're ready, but I mean, I don't want to bore you with too much information. What I've been doing this week is trying to. Sometimes I don't look at a stock. I look at an item, and to me, an item's an algorithm. It's something that fits some rules. So I'm looking at this is quite a good way to get inside without being inside. Like last week, we were talking about the ones with the least shares outstanding, with the smallest public float, the minimal amount of shares tradable. Now that's quite interesting, actually, when you look at that, because I coded into it reversal margins. And the reversal margin is, if it's gone down 90%, it's going to be 10 bags to get it back. But a lot of these are liquid, and liquidity comes from volume market makers, making the market. So I've taken a different angle and I've started looking at volume movers that fit the same criteria. And I found some absolute bangers, but I'm still doing some analysis, early day analysis.
Your old tease. How can you do that?
I mean, it's what sector you
we'll have to buy Zoetic instead. We can't wait. We can't wait any longer.
No, but
I mean,
some of these for me, I have key fundamental rules. I don't like any hashtags on Twitter. That's like rule number one. If someone's already hashtagged about, and I know I've bought stuff that's got hashtags on it, someone's already hashtagged it, chuck it in the bin. So you go through these rules of principle. The volume's sneaking up. Why is the volume sneaking up on this little nano cap? And you start looking at, what I looked at today, direct to dealing. For the last 4 months, loading it. The volume's gone up in the last week, like 400%. Not the price, the volume. So you can see people, and it's a way of being inside. Well, it's not really inside.
You're just looking at stuff which is just literally just starting. Or just open up shop. There's no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, stuff on small caps with not a lot of shares tradable, where it hasn't had volume.
Sounds like Aquis. You should be in paradise, so you could buy the whole exchange.
Yeah,
I know. Albert and Phil are the same thing. It's like they want to get in. They want to get in at below basement level and ride it, and then get out.
I mean,
which is good.
Well, you sit back at the minute and you think, what do I buy? Do I buy healthcare? Do I go into Bitcoin? And sometimes you've got to try and get outside of. I don't like to say outside the box. I don't like cliche that type of term. But rather than look at the market, let the market talk to you. So I'm writing this like code which will send me to the market, and what will send me to the market is that's got volume, and then I'll look at it and go, well, what is it? Who's been buying it? Is there any Twitter feeds? What have they got? What do they offer? Who's the bod? And you can find. I mean, I really enjoy it actually. I probably look at try and find 2 of them a day. I flag it on my list, and then I've been sitting there, and with the way the bloodbath markets have been, I actually quoted some souls to buy some of this stuff, and I just thought I can't do it. The ideas aren't good enough just yet to sell anything. Everything I hold, I love. So, and I mean, my capital isn't big enough if it's just through cash. I need to sell to buy, so it's the best idea gets it. So the way I'm playing the markets at the minute, especially the way it is, I'm trying to think of what's next, what companies don't people know about, try and get that first position, maybe take a long position, maybe try and figure out, I mean, I don't know what's going to come next after this mass testing, it might just all stop. So, you know, for me, I've spoke of 2 shares, Deep Verge. I mean, Deep Verge, heavily traded, but really when you look at the fundamentals and what Gerald's done to that company, I think that's going to be big. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. 10 million revenue this year. MHC, I think you're going to get a contract. And Dan the broker man, whoever the Twitter guy is, posting about it. I'm still fully 100% invested in MHC, and I think something's going to come there. So I'm waiting. I'll see what happens with those, and then I'm looking at new ventures. I'm trying to figure out what's going to come next and find some positions in whatever sector pops out.
So hopefully next week's Sunday roast you'll reveal all.
Yeah, well, that's yeah.
If we have another one, you know, if we can afford another roast, I mean, I don't know we'll manage that, but.
Well, yeah, I found
next week.
couple,
Next week's got to be news from SYME. They said before the end of the month, so we have to have news from SYME next week. Has to be. You know what he gives us, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get revenues from the preliminary work that's done before monetization. And we should get revenues from this, which should underpin the price. And maybe some more information on IMAS and a few other things. I don't think we're going to get monetization itself, Share Harbor. If we do, it's going to go berserk. If we don't, people will hopefully read into what we're going to get and realize that that means X is going to be monetized. And because people have already paid, I think it's between 0.5% and 1% of the monetization amount as a pre-ramble, if you like, to what they have to monetize. And then they pay 6% a year, I think it is, after that. So, yeah, I think SYME could be explosive. Either people running for the doors if we don't get any information at all, or it's going to go up. And I'm thinking 0.9 to 1.1 on any revenue news.
Do you think that anybody's really going to run for the doors on that now? I mean, it literally, if you haven't got out of that, you were a bit flaky, there's the suspension. I mean, if you haven't got out by now, you're probably dead. I mean, it's like, why would you be getting out now? See what I'm saying? I mean, it's like you must be a believer by now. It's a bit like with Eurasia. You know, you must have. I mean, if you hadn't taken a profit on Eurasia and you're waiting for the sale of the century.
Well,
if you hadn't done it by now, I mean, it's just like you're obviously just not able to find.
You are going to have the people that paid 0.75 sitting there like ducks, thinking, "I'm not going to."
Yeah, but if you put it the other way, you're talking about. We had this conversation in our group today about the quantity that you hold. So maybe you held whatever 5 million, and now you only hold 3 because you're not sure. Yeah. Or alternatively, you hold 40 million and you still hold 40 million, or you've sold down 10 million because you're not sure, etc., etc. And those people are going to, if the revenue comes in, are going to be running back in again.
I think what I was saying is, and I'm
I think you'll have eyes on it. You'll definitely have eyes on SYME. There'll be eyes all over it. But as long as it's not a Dominic wide TR1 trade, you'll be fine.
But it's one of those situations. I just don't believe. I'm not I famously don't even understand how it works. But with Supply Me, I just think that I just don't see it going down again, because I just can't believe there's anything else left to disappoint, to upset, to delay. It's just one of those things. It's people are just going to be, they've got the SYME groupies, and they're just not going to get out. I mean, they're just going to say, that's it.
I think the Telegram group own about, like, you look at the public float on it. I think they did some calculation in one of the groups, and I think the Telegram group held pretty much all of it at one point. The entire.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's a bit of that. It's a bit of the follow the money thing, which I've really got into. In the last, since the pandemic started, because the TR1s are like, that's like the main intelligence you have. I mean, that's the main insight you get of the market. And you look up the person who's done the TR1. That's a really big indicator now. It's just a bit like the Vin Muria thing of £17.5 million. Well, even if, it's it's inconceivable that somebody would put in that amount of money to blow it. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, it just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I like tracking the volumes, Zach, because sometimes if you see the sneaky positions, they come in before the TR1s. So you think, well, why is this getting?
That's very sneaky.
Follow the volume, look at the company. If it's really good, there's going to be TR. You get in before the TR1, you're doing a really good job.
Yeah. So
anyway, I hope you're right, Zach. I added a few more SYME today. I have just over 20 million.
I mean, I thought it was very good as well. Just the way that obviously there's been, Thursday was the end of the Jurassic. It was the meteorite hit the market, small cap market, and SYME handled that well. And then it's just like, it goes up 2-3% a day, just minds its own business, that kind of thing. I think is pretty impressive. I think that's
looking strong. It's looking very strong.
It didn't do that before it was suspended. And the word,
but you know what's cemented it is the fact that the FCA have been all over it. They've gone through all the books and they've had that suspension period. And actually, it's actually really cemented them and said, like, people now know that they're not doing, you know what I mean? The fact the FCA they've come out of suspension and they've given that. Now, I think back to what Kevin said, it needs, and I said it last call, needs the storm harbour. It needs some revenue. We need to see figures. We need to see what the due diligence costs are. We need to see how many assets under management or how many companies are under the first pilot scheme. And, the second one, how far is that down the road? Once we get the figures, then it will start to move and it will break that resistance point. I think you said around the 0.75. And I know Jarvi's been saying on her lovely charts that, that there's different resistance points first, but actually, once it breaks those resistance points, it will just continue. There's so many stocks Kevin's got 20 million out, and people in the groups have got 100 million, 150 million. There's some really big holders out there, and it will go off. And like we saw the rises we saw in August, we saw a 10 bag within 3 or 4 trading sessions. And I think Zach's right that, if you weren't in at the original rock bottom, 0.005 or 0.05 levels, and you were in and you didn't slice, 50 whatever % out, then you're mad, because you don't look at how many shares 10 bag. And I know that maybe, Albert, your philosophy is you ride it out until the big payday. But
I did say last week that when you get to 10 bags, you've seriously got to think about. I mean, this is where the greed will get you. I mean, if you've got a position of size and you get 10 bags, you've seriously got to think about slicing. I totally agree with what you've just said there, Phil, with the FCA comment, because I thought the same thing. The FCA, I mean, you've had Tom Winifred has been doing some stuff with the FCA, and I think he was complaining about. But the thing is now, for an investor or a trader, you've got validation that the FCA have pulled the pants down. They've suspended them, pulled the pants down. It's legit. So I think now people will hold positions in it.
They pulled his pants down, checked whether they were using FUM, and then now it's all going to be good.
Well, all you've got to say about FUM is strong and long. One word. And I love being in that stock. I'm not going to lie. It's my portfolio in a bloodbath of a week. A bloodbath of a week. My portfolio is 17% up. My entire portfolio 17% up. All thanks to
Zach can feel an edit coming on already.
No, that's all right. We can. I think there's so much stuff behind before this that. So Phil, just one final comment, one final stock.
Yeah, I'm going to just wait for Forbes again. At Forbes, I mentioned last week, it did me 300%, sliced out some on that, but I'm still holding a decent position. And they're waiting on a deal from Malta, actually, from the Maltese company out there. So it was meant to be this week. They delayed it. An RNS came out at the beginning of this week saying, unfortunately, it wasn't done, and it was expected this week. So I'm hoping that Monday morning comes and we get the RNS everyone wants, and we've got that first securitization deal process. So for me, that's what I'm looking forward to waking up to on Monday, Monday morning, 7 a.m. RNS.
I just want to mention I suppose it's not even a highlight because it's been doing so well for so long, but Open Orphan, it was my sort of stock of the year last year, and I think we've just gone to a new high so far this year. I think 33, 34.
Mabruk.
and £7.5 million contract announced today. And even though the company is quite sprawling, it's quite complex, the message seems to be has got through. I mean, it's been a dream. I think it's a dream for all holders. Not a rocky ride. Everybody loves it. About 33, 34, which is about the best it's been ever.
I bought
but just
9p, sold it at 14.
Yeah. So
never let them go. Never let them go.
But but that was that it's just been absolute textbook. And Carl's been, again, I don't know how he does it. He's got so much energy, but he's just really delivered on that. And I think some things he's done in a way that you probably wouldn't do, and some things he's done in a way that you would do. But if you add it all together, if you're a CEO trying to copy him or whatever it is, he's just done it.
He's definitely come in and flipped the company around. Definitely. I remember when he first came in, he was in there was one with Tiziana Life Science, him and Gabrielli talking on Proactive. And I was reviewing and I watched him speak, and he came in, it was literally nothing, and he's coming and giving it a big flip. So he's done really well. So well done to all holders.
All right.
Tills is back to below £1 again. No, it's crazy.
We can go through that in detail. I won't talk anymore tonight, but I've got a lot of information on Tills. It's very undervalued, Tills. It's very undervalued. It's they've got so very quick.
No, don't go quick. We want long and strong.
Long Save it for next week. Let's do a Tills feature.
Save it for next week.
Leave them wanting more. I find that difficult to believe, but leave them wanting more, I think, is the right way to go.
Tills is going to be huge. Tills is going to be absolutely huge. They've got the best drug ever. They've got a replacement for tocilizumab, which is an intravenous drug, costs £500 per injection, takes 1 hour, most successful anti-inflammatory in COVID. They've got a tablet, fully human version of that, whereas the one that's
okay, very good,
humanized.
And you own it? You have Tills?
I love Tills, and I love Gabrielli. I love the story to it. I can run you through it in another chat. I can tell you all about it.
Okay.
Because all the traders are in it, and they just want back. They don't get the story. And one day, when they've all sold it and cleared off and jumped off the ship, they're going to look back and go, "Tills was the one that got away." I'm telling you.
No, I don't know.
It's a really good stock. I absolutely love it.
Who knows? One day Gabrielli may turn up and be on the Sunday roast as well.
Yeah, I bought it in January and sold it at 150, and I was very happy.
I bought Tills at 39p. I was the only person buying it. No one else was buying it on the market. There was Jarvey everyone. No one would buy it. I was in a Telegram group on my own for about 3 months.
How does that happen?
Oh, I just buy it.
How do you do that?
All right, there was me and about 5 guys in it.
And
shit hot. I was like, you need to buy this. And then, but I really went to town, and like I looked at Gabrielli, and I was Gabrielli Cerrone, and I looked back, and he was on the BBC in 2000, and it must be like 15 years ago, and he was talking about a late partner that he lost. I don't know if it was actually his partner or a family member. And what was really beautiful about the story, he speaks with a lot of passion, and he lost his partner. And with the stem printer thing, it was really beautiful because he's actually got a prognosis kit, the best in the world. And one of his family members, unfortunately,
the breast cancer diagnostic is the best in the world.
And this could stop that happening to people, in the future. So, I mean, it's a bit of a breakthrough for him, and I've done a hell of a lot of research on all of it. I know all the people he worked with at universities. I really stripped it to pieces, but I'll always have a good heart for Tills and Gabriel.
Okay, stop. Do it next week.
Do it again. Okay, folks, that's it for the Sunday roast. Thank you to Phil. Thank you to Kevin. Thank you to Albert, and we'll see you again near the oven, basting away next week.
Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Take care.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.